3.8, rewrite equations and formulas. So a lot of this is basically they give us an equation and we're solving for a particular variable using the stuff that we've been doing like essentially throughout. We've been solving for like one variable, but if they have multiple and stuff like that, we'll be talking about how to solve for that. So there's not really any like notes for this. Number 4, these say to solve the literal equation for x. So they give us an equation that doesn't have any numbers in it. So like this one's going to be a times x plus b equals c. And we're solving for x in that equation. And so I'm trying to get x by itself, so I have to undo things to get to that point. And then they give me an equation with numbers that looks the same. And essentially, I'm just plugging in those numbers and solving. So I'm kind of like doing each one twice. So I need to get x by itself. So the first thing that I need to do is divide both sides by a, which will leave me with x plus b equals c divided by a. And then I need x by itself, so subtract b. So this is x equals c over a minus b. And this would be the first part of what it asks for. So this is like part 1. And then they give us 2 times x plus 1 equals 9. So this obviously looks like the exact same equation except for there's numbers now, right? You tracking on that? So if I recognize that this is A, this is B, and this is C, then what I can do is I can just use this equation that I found already and plug those numbers into it without actually having to completely solve a second time. Okay, so I'm going to use this equation and plug these numbers in. So x equals c divided by a, so that's 9 divided by 2, minus 1, because 1 is b. And then I can just reduce that down, and they do, it looks like decimal answers for this section. So 9 divided by 2 is what?
4.5.
So 4.5 minus 1 is 3.5. And this would be part 2. So essentially you're solving for the variable in this equation. Okay, and this is a really important skill to be able to do, is to solve for a particular variable or something that they're asking you to solve for. This comes in handy pretty much for the entire rest of the time that you're ever in math, and we use this in physics a lot and like sciences and stuff like that when you're solving formulas and all of that. So, but then they give us this, which is the exact same equation, and we're just looking at, okay, 2 matches up with the A over here, 1 matches up with B right here, and then 9 matches up with C, and then we can just take and plug those numbers into the equation and solve. Okay, are we tracking? I'm going to do more, but just want to make sure that we're understanding what I just did on that one problem. Okay. Number 6. X over A equals B over C. And then ultimately, I'm looking at x over 8 equals 4.5 over 12. So I need to solve for x over here first. So what would I have to do to try to get x by itself?
Times it by a.
Yep, multiply both sides by a. So x equals b times a divided by c, or you can leave it like separated like I have it right here is fine too. So this is the first part of solving the formula. And then over here, I'm going to essentially align these with what I have over here. So I had x over a, so 8 is a. B over C, so B is 4.5 and C is 12. So now I can take this formula and I can plug those numbers in. So 4.5 times 8, so that's A and B, divided by 12. So I would personally probably reduce. I can take a 4 out of this and be left with 2. I can take a 4 out of this and be left with 3. What's 4.5 times 2?
8, 9.
So 9 over 3, which is
3.
3. So the answer to that would be 3. Okay, and I know that you know how to solve these problems without having to do this, but you have to show both steps, okay? Because really the big thing in this section isn't so much that you can do this. You already proved to me in whatever, 3.5, 3.6, you can do this. I need to see that you can solve for a variable like this, okay? So you obviously have to do both parts, but you have to show this. Don't try to shortcut it. Come on. Okay. One more of these ones. Number 8, AX plus B equals CX minus D. And then the other equation with numbers is 2x plus 9 equals 7x minus 1. So what do you notice is different about this one compared to the first two that we did?
The numbers and the variables are together.
They're not over fractions.
They're not fractions. I have
No decimals.
stuff being multiplied. Yeah, there's no decimals in this one. But what about the x's?
They're being multiplied.
There's 2. All the other problems have only had 1. Right, I say all of them like it's been 2 problems. But this one has 2. So what I need to do is just like when we had the problems where we had variables on both sides, and we had to solve by moving it over, I need to move one of these over, and then I need to move the ones that don't have a variable over to the other side, okay? So before I do that, I would say go over here and go ahead and say, all right, it's AX plus B, so this is A, this is B, and then CX minus D, so this is C and this is D, because when you start moving stuff around, I don't want you to like get confused. All right, so I need to move all the x's to the left, so I'm going to subtract CX from both sides. I also want to move this B over to the right because I only want x terms over here and I only want the number terms over here, so I'm going to move B. So now I'm going to rewrite this as AX minus CX equals negative B minus D, and it doesn't matter what order, I'm just writing them alphabetical. Do we track on what I've done to this point? Okay. So now I need to, this is something we haven't done yet, but I need to factor out an x. Okay, so what that means is if both terms have an x, I can take it out of it. Okay, so what this is going to end up looking like is x times what's left over. If I get rid of the x here in both of these, I'm left with A minus C. Equals negative B minus D. Okay, so this is the new part right here of taking out something because A and C, I don't know what they are, right? Like at this, I know what they are over here, but pretend this doesn't exist. I don't know what A and C are, so I don't know if I can actually combine them, right? Okay, so now I need to divide both sides by A minus C. And so x equals negative B minus D over A minus C. Now, if you had moved your x's to the right and your numbers to the left, you would end up with a slightly different answer on this part, okay? So but it would ultimately give you the same end result when you do it over here. It's just going to look different in how this is set up because there's no numbers in here. Okay? So just know that if your answer doesn't match exactly, come ask me because I can look at it pretty quickly and tell you if you have it right and you just moved it the opposite way that they did. Okay? So now I'm going to use this and I'm going to plug in these numbers up here. So x equals negative b. B is 9, so negative 9 minus d is negative 1. So I'm going to put a parentheses there so that I don't lose that sign.
So you couldn't just put +1?
You can. I'm just doing it so everyone sees what's happening. Divided by a is 2 minus c is 7. So up here, this is really negative 9 plus 1. So if you want, you can rewrite that as a plus. Negative 9 plus 1 is what?
8.
Negative
Negative
8.
8.
Negative 8. And then 2 minus 7 is?
Negative 5.
So x equals?
Would it be negative?
Oh, yeah.
So you can either leave it as 8 over 5.
Or
1.6.
Yeah, I would just leave it like that, but hold on.
like that. Too much work.
Okay. I was checking because that's not the book, the answer that's in the book, but their answer is a typo. Yeah, anyways.
They have too many typos in the back of that book.
They really do.
They're failures.
I feel like there's got to be a better way. Like, if you're going to produce a textbook, I feel like the pre-cal book has, like, a ton of, like, typos in, like, the answers of the book. And I'm like, why? What good does this do
Everybody
me?
should stop letting them make books then.
Use a calculator.
We should make the books. It'd be 1 + 1 the whole way through.
Miss Hudson would not want to be having that book.
All right, for problems 11 through 19, the instructions say write the equation so that y is a function of x. That just means get y by itself. Okay. All right, so number 12. 5x plus 4y equals 10. So I want to get y completely by itself, so I'm going to leave that term alone for the moment. So any ideas what I might need to do first? The only thing I want left on the left side is the term with the y. So how would I move this over?
Divided by.
Minus 5x. So I have 4y equals negative 5x plus 10. Or you can write it 10 minus 5x. Doesn't matter. Now, how do I get y completely by itself?
Divide by negative 5.
No, you divide by 4.
Divide by 4. And so I'm going to show you, you can either leave this exactly as it is, as y equals negative 5x plus 10 over 4, which is how I often will leave it, or we can split it into two separate fractions with a common denominator. Okay, which
I think we're fine.
Yeah, I think we're good.
I think we're good.
I'm going to show you because the answers in the back of the book have it split. I leave it like this, which is totally fine. I'm just letting you know because the book's going to write it differently, so I want you to see what they did. they will have it as y equals negative 5x over 4 plus 10 over 4. But then 10 over 4 can reduce, so their answer is actually y equals negative 5x over 4 plus 5 over 2. Okay? So you can write it either way. That's fine. I write it like this. Book writes it like this. Okay?
You can actually figure out. I know, but you can actually. There's actually an answer to that problem. X is 1 and Y is 1.25.
Okay. Just a question. They just wanted to get y by itself. They
Like
didn't
I
want
said,
the answer
like
to
I
y.
said,
They
they should
didn't want
be
the
writing the
answer
book.
to x. They didn't want the answer to y or x. So
Yeah, but it makes it easier for me.
no.
Now, what this ultimately is leading us to be able to do is to be able to graph things. If we were graphing it, we would have to have it written like this. But
Are we gonna have to graph this thing?
Don't give her ideas.
I'm pretty sure
I hate
chapter
graphing.
4 is graphing.
I hate graphing. Let's burn the book and get a new one.
Yeah, literally next chapter is graphing. The first section is just plotting points. It's fine.
Let's burn the book and get a new one.
All right, 14. 18x minus 2y equals 26. All right, I still want to get y by itself, so what's the first thing I need to do?
Minus 18x.
Minus 18x. So I have negative 2y equals negative 18x plus 26. Now what do I have to do?
Divide by negative 2.
Divide by negative 2. Now, what are both of these numbers?
Whole numbers.
Even numbers.
Whole numbers, specifically even numbers. So that means I can reduce this stuff. Okay? So I can take a 2 out of both things. One like this is probably easier for you to see it if we split it. There's another way I could teach you to do it, but until we learn factoring, I think you're going to be confused.
Thank you.
So I'm not going to do that way. So y equals negative 18x over negative 2 plus 26 over negative 2. Negative 18x divided by negative 2 would be what? 9x. And then 26 divided by negative 2?
Negative 13.
Negative 13. Okay, so if it's something that can be reduced, so these were both even, and this is clearly an even number, specifically something that's divisible by 2, you should reduce it down, okay? You'd only lose like 1 point if you didn't reduce it, but you should. Yes. Is that your question?
I was gonna ask, like, I originally just write it the way you did it up there. This seems simpler. I don't want less complicated.
To leave it like this?
No, like the one you did on 12. Yeah, that one. Y equals that.
You probably.
This one we could leave because the only thing that would reduce is this, but if both numbers can reduce, you need to reduce it. Like this one.
I only have one robot.
Did you guys know Roblox is worth more than Russian?
16. 8x minus 8y equals 5.
Minus.
What do I do?
Minus x, y.
Minus 8x, so negative 8y equals negative 8x plus 5. Then what?
Divide by negative 8.
So this one you could leave as negative 8x plus 5 over negative 8. You could leave it like that if you want because both things wouldn't reduce. Or we can write it the other way. Y equals negative 8x over negative 8 plus 5 over negative 8, which is ultimately going to give me y equals x minus 5 over 8. Okay, so either way is fine. Book's going to write it this way. When we start graphing in the next chapter, you will have to write it this way. Okay?
Did you guys know Roblox is worth more than a Russian currency?
Shut up.
No, and I don't want to know.
We're in math, not Roblox, okay?
So why do we
All right, 18. This one's a little different. 3 plus 6x equals 11 minus 4y. Okay, so this one, the y's on the right, that's totally fine. It doesn't matter if y's on the left or the right as long as we get y by itself. But I'm doing the exact same thing, except for this time I'm not moving an x term. What am I moving?
The 11.
The 11. How do I move it?
You minus 11 to, yeah.
But notice, the subtracting 11 only goes with the 3. So 3 minus 11 is what? Negative 8 plus 6x equals negative 4y.
Okay, now I get it.
Now what?
Minus 6.
I need y by itself.
Divide by 4.
Negative
Divide by negative 4.
Oh no, she's gonna
Now, what are all these numbers?
even.
So what can I do?
You can simplify.
I can simplify. So, negative 8 over negative 4 plus 6x over negative 4 equals y. So what is this?
2 plus 1.5x equals y.
Where'd you get 1.5?
So I would just do 3 over 2, but it's actually minus.
Oh yeah.
Oh. I got that one.
Okay, and the reason I would write it as a fraction is to get in the habit, even though it's improper, okay? Because when we start doing graphing, it's going to have to be in fraction form. Slope has to be in a fraction form, regardless if it's improper or not. Okay, so this would be the answer to this one. All right, 2 more things and then we're done. These ones say to solve the formula for the indicated variable. Okay, so these are actual, like, geometry formulas, okay, and we're solving for a particular variable. So this is a number 20, the volume of a rectangular prism. And it's V equals L times W times H. Okay, a rectangular prism is just a box. Just a fancy way to say a box. Like a shoebox, tissue box, whatever. Okay? Volume is length times width times height. That's how you find volume. They want us to solve for W. So I want to get W by itself. So what's happening to W at the moment?
Being times.
By what?
L and H.
Okay, so if I want to get rid of that, if they're being multiplied, how would I get rid of them over here?
Divide.
So I'm going to divide both sides by LH. You can do that all at once. I don't know why that H looks like that. That was weird. So W equals, and I could have left it on the right side. Just have it. I put it on the left. V divided by L times H. So what that just allowed me to do is, let's say I know the volume of my box, I know the length, and I know the height, but I don't know the width. I can solve for the width of the box because I have all those other pieces of information. Okay, so that's what this is ultimately getting us toward, is to be able to solve for different things in formulas that we need to solve for. Let's see, one more of these, and then I'll give you your problems. And then hopefully you'll have time to get them done so you don't have to do it for homework. 22. The length of a movie.
A movie?
Give us an example.
Projected at 24 frames per second. I'm just doing SEC for seconds. And so the equation is L equals 24F. And they want me to solve for F. So I just want to get F by itself. Okay? So I need F by itself. How do I get rid of the 24? Divide. So F equals L divided by 24. All right. Any questions on any of that? All right. Then your problems are 3 through 23 odd.
What's it like? 10
Something like that. Number 9 is a describe and correct the error, so figure out what they did wrong. Number 23 is more of a challenge problem because it's going to require you to do a lot more steps, okay? So I want you to do your best on it. It's multiple choice, so that should help a little bit. But I want you to do your best and then remind me on Monday and we'll go over number 23 because I will probably forget by then.